We're recording. Well, welcome to
Hello.
a new episode of the Mystical Journey of CNC. And today we have a special guest, Remington. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And we're super excited to have you on today.
It's the biggest honor, and I was really grateful when you asked me to do this. I guess whenever, a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
My name is Remington Donovan, aka the Mystical Arts on Instagram. So our the names of this definitely merged. I'm a numerologist, a tarot reader, a teacher, a seer. I teach yoga, um, podcaster. What else do I do? Those. Oh, I'm an author. I'm a
Yes.
writer too. I always forget
Book?
about
Yeah.
that. So, and I have other books that will be coming out hopefully by next year, year and a half as well that I'm working on. So,
That's exciting. I know I've enjoyed listening to your podcast for quite a while now. So I feel like I know already a lot about your upbringing, but would you like to share a little bit of where you grew up and how you came to be who you are today? All these little things between the tarot, the yoga, the everything.
yeah,
Numerology.
sure. I don't want to bore you with it since you've heard a lot of it, but I know you have a
No,
lot
you're
of
not
new
boring me, but
listeners.
I want to, the everybody that's watching to kind of know more about you. And I think it's fascinating. It's never boring. You have these stories, and it's not like your common upbringing. So it's cool to hear.
Yeah. Oh no, I'll share it. So, well, I grew up with I guess start from the beginning. I grew up with Swami Satchidananda, who was one of the big teachers from India that came to the West, and he happened to come to New York City. Really, was his main sort of base, and he came to America in the late '60s, and I was born early '70s, and he opened a center in New York City, and that's where my whole family's from. And my dad, sort of, was a little bit older, so he was almost a little more sort of beatnik, and then he was an actor, an off Broadway actor in New York City, and he discovered yoga in the late '60s, and he discovered meditation, and he kind of just found his calling a little bit more. And he learned yoga from Satchidananda and started teaching at this yoga center. And then at some crazy hippie party, he met my mom. And so he got her into the yoga stuff. And then I was born. We actually lived across the street from the yoga center, or a few buildings down, but still technically across the street on the same street in New York City. And it kind of started from there, and then eventually it migrated a little bit. We lived in Berkeley, but in Connecticut. So I grew up on an ashram. I grew up learning yoga. Grew up learning yogic, like, breath techniques. And yoga too isn't just about doing stretchy poses or holding poses or meditating. It's this whole of this lifestyle. So in a way, I grew up like, I kind of joke I grew up on a cult, but it really was just was a large spiritual community. A lot of, a lot of interesting characters coming and going. My entire childhood, famous musicians. It was actually Carole King helped buy the building that we were originally all living on, and then eventually my parents had a little house like not even a mile down the street. But it was pretty cool. I mean, it was all these wild hippies that were basically getting off drugs and replacing it for
Yeah.
yoga, meditation, a whole new lifestyle. But nobody knew what yoga was then. And I really attribute um, being a kid there, and all of the kids with so much other success. But I do attribute Satchidananda with really getting yoga, at least in America, as
Mhm.
in a way as widespread. Like, you can buy yoga mats at Walmart now and take it there. Literally probably take a yoga class at almost any town in America.
Yeah.
like every gym. And when I was a kid, nobody, it was an unusual esoteric practice. Um, and a lot of the kids that I grew up with I'm still in touch with almost all of them. There was like a super small group. A lot have done really huge and successful things. A bunch of people are super famous. And I'm not saying it about fame. It's just interesting that this like misfit group of like
Yeah.
maybe not even 15 kids, 12 kids, um, kind of all kind of got a different programming, a different upbringing. Anything was possible. I feel like I'm a little late bloomer with everything because I never thought the stuff that I loved the most would turn into the thing that could be a thing and it is a marketable skill set. But Los Angeles is great for that.
Yeah, for
Can I
sure.
can I ask
Sure.
a question? What was it like?
Yeah.
Like as a kid, what was your day like? Did you get up and meditation or
Well,
like that?
yeah. Okay. So, like regular, like school days. So, we had our own private school, all experimental. Like, we didn't have grades or anything like that. Like, it was all the kids. It was literally a big room. And so, like, my regular, like, day to day, like, let's say it was a school day, I'd pretty much wake up, get to school, and we would take, like, a lot of the kids would take turns carpooling because we all lived right within a couple 2 miles of this place. So one of my friends would either pick me up or would pick them up. We'd get to school and then we would start the morning. We would all sit in a circle. We would do a puja, which is like a little ceremony where you take this lantern. It's like a ghee lamp, and you actually would make a little sort of incantation and chant in an om. And then we had little pictures of the different teachers. We had Swami Satchidananda and Swami Shivananda, who was his teacher. And then my whole childhood, there was just pictures of like spiritual teachers and masters from all over the world in every tradition. We would go around in the circle and every kid would share like what was going on with them. And which I actually think is a great idea. And so each kid would just talk about the whatever. Like I remember once I really wanted a Star Wars, it was a digital Star Wars watch. And I was like maybe 6 or 7, like, and I still couldn't tell time easily, like on a dial clock. So I remember sharing that I was really upset that my dad wouldn't allow me to have the watch until I learned how to tell time. And we would just share like our little problems or concerns or just something good. And then, so each kid would go around, we would do that. And then we'd have a group meditation, probably just a few minutes, just close your eyes. And then we would do yoga. And so all of the kids, though, had to learn to be yoga teachers. So I'm talking 7 years old.
Yeah.
We would lead the yoga class, and this was before like teachers training certification. Now there's like, especially in LA, you're like, I teach paddleboard yoga, yoga for goats, dog yoga,
Yeah.
pregnancy yoga. I saw a heavy metal yoga class in New York.
Yeah. I heard
I
about
actually
it.
I wanted to go. My friend Grujas, who's like, a new age Grammy winner, White Sun Mantra, it's super angelic. She's like, I would go do metal yoga with you. But so there's like
Count me
everything.
in.
What's that? Let's do
Count
it.
me in. I'll,
Um
I'll go too. I'll try it out.
so we got to learn that from someone like Satchidananda, like, kind of one of the heavy hitters. And so we would lead the sets, and then we would go about, I don't even remember how or what we were learning. But we did have to, and then we were in groups. And so every day, one of the groups, so we all had a day that our group would cook lunch too. So we had to learn to like cook and do all this like home ec stuff. And we had to like make the meals. So like when I remember Wednesday was my group's big day. And then whatever, like we'd learn a lot about different spiritual traditions, religious stories, spiritual stories from everything from Christianity to Judaism. We'd have guests come in from like so many major world religions and world spiritualities.
That's
And now,
yeah.
as an adult, and I look back at who some of these people are, I'm like, oh, these are like heavy hitters, you know? So I learned about Catholicism. We'd have Buddhist monks, Shinto monks. I mean, I grew up knowing about Shintoism,
Yeah.
which is, you know, a spiritual tradition from
I know. I
Japan.
I taught my kids when we went to Japan. I was like, oh, let's get we got this young guy that taught them. I mean, they were little, they don't remember, but they were fascinated with Shintoism. You
I
know,
was,
yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no, you go on. Your kids, just in pictures and stuff, seem very like sensitive and very attuned.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, that was sort of the typical day, but I swear, I'm like, I don't know, remember how or where I learned to like read or write or do math or anything.
Well, now you're an
So
author, so your
yeah,
skills are
now I'm technically literally a professional writer. So I guess I've even written some film stuff in LA, some cartoons that are pretty famous actually. So, like, yeah, it's, I guess you just sort of absorb it. But I gotta say, when you're a kid around teachers like that, the things that an adult would resonate, or what the teachings or what they're saying, I'm still like I'm a 7-year old, 8-year old boy. Like, I wanted to ride my bike. I wanted to listen to Kiss. I wanted,
yeah,
like, like, I was very aware that we were a part of something that wasn't part of the norm, but I still knew what was going on in the world. And we went to movies. So it wasn't like
yeah,
as
you're not like
isolated,
yeah.
yeah, or as like weird as maybe sometimes people think. But, what I realize now as an adult, though, is the energy transmission, to have teachers like that and to be that close with someone like Satchidananda, you just absorb it differently as a
Yeah.
kid, and it's less intellectual, and there's just an energy that shifts, you
So
know.
when you moved, like when, because you said you weren't aware, like you seeing now as an adult the honor, the gift, or like the blessing it was to be around all these people and receive all these teachings. When was that? When did you make that transition? When did you like realize also that you wanted to work in that field, or improve, like get more I guess maybe get more knowledge about all the different, like you go on, you become a numerologist, uh, um, a tarot reader, everything that you do. Was there a point where you're like, oh, I can do this, or I want to do this, or where you always had that calling, or is it like
That Yeah, that's a really good question. So, so I grew up mostly with what maybe we could say Eastern spirituality,
yeah,
right? So yoga, and that was the big movement, sort of a byproduct, of like this sort of hippie counterculture alternative, growing up. And I've carried that with me my whole life, but it was really once for a few years, when I was a little older, I wound up going to public school. The ashram I lived in, we moved from New York to Connecticut, like I said, and the ashram itself relocated to Virginia because land at the time was like dirt cheap. And Satchidananda wanted to build this huge temple that looked like a lotus flower and dedicated to all world spiritualities, and a temple for peace on the planet. And my parents were really established with their business all in New England, New York, the Northeast of America. Um, so a few of us kids kind of stayed behind, and then I was just in sort of the ho hum of like regular, kind of muggle world,
yeah,
public school, kind of regular kids, that I was originally I was like kind of afraid.
yeah, was that
Not
a
like
no, or
yeah, you're like, all these kids. I assumed every kid was like some bully, and
yeah,
we're like chanting and doing yoga, and we're like, where we literally made our own movies and wrote stories and did all of this creative stuff. And my parents are artists; they did craft shows for a living,
Yeah.
and and uh, and so when I was about, I would say around 13, and I always kept a special place, but I tried to fit in for a few years, for like maybe not even like, actually, I guess more like 14. So maybe 3, 4 years of my life, I tried to be like I wanted to be like a red blooded American. I pretended like I was into sports. I wanted to be a jock. And literally, that's like my saving grace was my obsession with like music,
Uh-huh.
and that was like my sort of my joy. And a few of the other kids, I mentioned this on the podcast, but the lead
Yeah.
singer to
Yeah.
Weezer, Rivers Cuomo, who
Yeah.
lives in LA, we grew up together and we went to public school together. And so our little thing with him and his brother was just music, heavy metal, literally like Motley Crue. Like, it kind of saved us. But I also had my secret passion of 80s pop music. Like, I love Boy George and Madonna and stuff like that. And they were great. But it was around 13, 14, I discovered like witchcraft. I discovered Wicca,
Mhm.
and that opened up, that changed my life, because I finally discovered something and realized, okay, my real calling, I knew this as a teacher, was spirituality, spiritual practices. When I learned about like Wicca slash witchcraft and paganism, I guess, like
Yeah.
from Europe, um, it really, I loved that there was spirituality, it was devotion. I liked the reverence for nature. And I also liked that it was a lot more open about like sexuality. We live in the world, we still have to make money. A lot of how I grew up, a lot of these people took monastic vows. Like, they were monks and nuns. Like, they gave up vows of poverty and chastity, and so I kind of, I got an imprint, and I still wanted to be like, I'm also like a teenage boy, and I liked all this rock music and stuff. And it kind of, on some level, the ashram I grew up felt like a little restrictive or a little strict.
Yeah.
So that opened up a lot of energies. And all through high school, I read every book that was in print in English in America that I could get my hands on witchcraft and Wicca. And I thought that was my real calling. And then my father died. Well, we had relocated after high school, and that was my passion. And I just started to explore it. I started learning tarot originally through books and things like that, and that just sort of opened up the channels for when we moved to the small town in Massachusetts called Northampton, right out of when I finished high school, and I was going to take some time off before college. But then I just knew spirituality from high school. I just knew that was my thing, but I wanted to learn deeper these sort of Western mystery traditions. I thought it was like Wicca and witchcraft, and I got a job at an occult store working for two like old school witches that had like an old school coven with like very deep, strong initiation ceremonies. So I worked at the bookstore, and that's when I started to discover like what I'd call hermetic magic, and tarot maybe on a deeper level. But it's through books, and these people, they were on some level, they were teachers, but that wasn't like my thing. And then my father died. It was all somewhat sudden. Nobody knew he was sick, and then he got diagnosed with cancer, and that was the biggest shift in my life at the time. And one thing led to another, and I actually wound up um, totally in a different state, and the universe conspired and everything opened up, and I found a teacher in Western Hermetic ceremonial magic, Hermetic magic. And that teacher is an adept, and everything is handed down as taught in secret. And so I dedicated my life to that, to learning that. And it had always been my private life. And on the outside, I just, I had some jobs and things that were just what I did to like pay bills and live.
Mhm.
And then after many years of that, 22 years, I came to Los Angeles, which was little about like now it's 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
and my whole life had uprooted. I basically lost everything. I was I was strung out on drugs and like really intense drugs, and but when I first got to LA, wasn't so bad. I came here because I had a television show in the works,
Uh-huh.
and I had a girlfriend who made a documentary in Virginia, and then that was in the. I wrote a fictional script. I'm moving to LA, and I was a comedian, and I was like going to be a comedian and a writer, and I kind of put the all my magical stuff a little bit on the side, and I just sort of took this other course, and then in LA, like I really got to the point of I suicide. I didn't obviously kill myself, but I was I was so close, and I'm revealing a lot, and I hope it's not too heavy,
No,
but I
but
would love
yeah.
anybody to know if they're struggling with something like that or drugs and alcohol, there's a way out. And I know what it's like to think the only solution to continue with life is to commit suicide. Like, you don't understand that there's a way out, and that's how depressed I was. And I uh I literally wrote, I have somewhere in my boxes of notes, I have the suicide note that I started to write, and I was on Venice Beach. I was living in Venice,
Mm-hmm.
and um my pen ran out of ink when I was writing this note, and it was a literally, I'm not exaggerating, it was a brand new pen that I literally took it out of the package because I used to do stand up comedy like all over LA, and so I would write. I like to handwrite notes and jokes, and it just, I couldn't do anything. The pen just froze. It just stopped, and I just, that was like some higher power spirit
Yeah.
interrupting that whole
Yeah.
process. But at the time, I literally was like, I am such a loser that and so dysfunctional at life that I can't even write a suicide note. Like, that's how bad. Like, that's how lame I thought I was, and just I'd lost my job. I had zero money, and but that pen running out of ink, and I had the most transcendental like experience that I literally attribute to the goddess Isis that night. And something was lifted off of me. I completely detoxed everything. No side effects, no symptoms. I got clean officially a few days later, and it was 100 days later discovered Kundalini yoga in LA, and that's when everything really shifted. Those were like the key pivotal moments in my life. And the Kundalini, I was like, because I knew about Yogi Bhajan, I knew some of these teachers, I knew who Sikhs were. I didn't know that that was a tie into Kundalini, and I just resonated with the energies. And then from that, getting clean, being in LA, I kind of just awakened that part of myself I tried to hide for like maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I just started doing readings for people in LA, like on the side. And I was thinking, well, all of these are secret teachings. It's not, I wouldn't be my job. Nobody really has a job or a career in this. And I was just focused on my spiritual practice, my meditations. And then it was like Guru Jas. I literally had 22 years of training with mystical Kabbalah and all the numerology. And she handed me a little booklet about something called tantric numerology, which is yogic numerology, which I didn't learn as a kid. And I just merged them, and it took off, and I started doing readings, and it just was word of mouth. It took off like gangbusters. And I
Yeah.
think it's because this is what the universe wanted me to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been all word of mouth, like, and it's just got client after client after client based on my ability and my performance. And then all of a sudden I kind of just started getting a little more known for it. Then I got the book deal, and so it's been like a progression, but it's been my entire life that this has been my work. It was like a
But do you
couple of
think,
years.
yeah, for people listening, because I mean, we've had quite a few guests, and then for us too, we that even though you grew up around the mystical traditions and all that stuff, but um, I mean, I know I had a similar experience than you have, not with suicide, but it was close. It was kind of like I was attacked so bad I almost got killed, but
Oh,
somehow in one moment, like the sky opened up, and I got the adrenaline and the force to fight back. And from that moment on, um, I got almost the courage to be my true self. I mean, I'm still not there every day. I'm trying to improve, but it seems like, your experience was similar. I know my sister, she got sick, and she had to also overcome this to kind of be more of who she is. Like, I almost feel like the universe is there knocking, like, hey, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, but we're not listening. And then sometimes
totally.
has to punch us in the face for us to hear it, and and some people, never see that, or it's like, okay, I punch you harder and harder, up until you get your, you know,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just, on some level, I got sort of off track. At the same time, I'm grateful, because had I not sort of gotten so off track and lost everything, I'd probably still just be trying to, like, just do stand up, maybe get a job writing on a show, or, could I option the show that I came out for? Like, it was, envy. It was like, I was like, oh, I have a show potentially in the works, and NBC is doing,
yeah,
if once you're in Hollywood too, you realize how much stuff, if anyone out there has no idea how much things are about to get done that never get done. You're just seeing, like, the teeniest, probably music too. You're just
yeah,
seeing the smallest fraction.
yeah,
But now I'm grateful. But yeah, it took the universe just kicking my ass and
yeah.
being like, driving me to the brink of suicide, um and sort of connecting, because I had dismissed yoga, because I grew up and I love still the spirituality of it, but I was like, it's like you can buy a yoga mat at Walmart or Target, and there's literally a yoga class in every gym, in every place, and I was like, it's exercise now. And it took me finding, for me, it was kundalini, where I was like, oh, this is very esoteric, this is very magical, it's a system of magic, meaning it's a spiritual system where you cause change for your own empowerment, to open up to your destiny. And
I
I
love the
don't know.
mantra on one of your podcasts, like, oh, I got out of this situation because I was just
Oh,
saying my mantra.
yeah, I literally was
That's
getting arrested for dealing LSD when I was a kid. And I said that mantra, Om Triambakam Yajamahe
yeah.
Sugandhin Pushti Vardham. And they let me off, man. That, like, because I found my teacher less than a year after that. And my life would have taken a whole different course. Yeah, you got to use magic to, like, if I'm making a legal U-turn, I just say mantras. Now I got this huge 4-wheel drive car, and I'm, like, literally making a U-turn in LA, and I just drive up on over the curve in the sidewalk. It's pretty funny, but
Saying
I
your
just say them.
mantra, nobody gets.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, Adgidaname, and no, I don't hurt anybody. Nobody notices. The cop didn't see it. Ultimately, that's why I have a deep spiritual practice, is so I could commit crimes. um, I always thought that would be a good show. I was like, maybe if I
Totally.
get,
Yeah.
I'll write
You
that
can
one.
merge now your mystical
Exactly.
practice with the comedy, and create like this yeah.
But I think that the people really dedicated to some evolution of their soul, so many have gone through some trial and tribulation, some struggle, whether it's growing up with abuse. Everyone's got their unique story, and, like, what you just shared is really powerful, and I couldn't even imagine. And it took me, like, I just wanted to get my life together. And even a few years, though, it took me a bit to believe that what I do is a marketable skill set, could actually be a career. And it's just, sometimes, like, a lot of people too, and if anyone listening is really into this stuff or wants to make a living at it, I will say this, I didn't intend, I'm doing the only thing that is what I need to be doing. I still like, I love comedy. I like to be funny. I got really lucky. At least I fulfilled one of my writing dreams and like being in LA. So at least I could get that little check mark and I got to go to a movie theater and see the movie I wrote and stuff like that. So in a way that was like kind of validating, but if I really just sit back, it's the quote spiritual stuff that I love, and I've literally dedicated my entire life, like from being born into it. I got a little. Plus, if you're into all this stuff and you're getting distracted with a lot of drugs and drinking, I feel like it's very common. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. I mean, I'm clean now, but mostly because I know I'm an addict. And then, but even in all my magical training, there's a misnomer that like drugs somehow are a big part of it because Aleister Crowley talks about
Yeah.
drugs. But also, if you know more, it's actually not a part of it. And he even wrote this book, Diary of a Drug Fiend, which people think is about loving drugs. And it's actually a book about getting off drugs. And finding your true soul's purpose and enacting that. And we're just using a lot of drugs when we're not sure what that is. And there's no big deal. Like, most people on a deep spiritual path, and at least in our culture, did that, experimented with it. I have no judgment on it. I like what my teacher says: just keep doing whatever you're doing, add more yoga, and things just start to sort itself out. Like, you don't have to be like, well, I'm going to quit everything and caffeine. And,
Yeah.
you've probably seen it. Like, people go hardcore into something and then they're like, they won't even have a sip of green tea,
I know.
or
I
like
see
look
it
at
a
a cute
lot
girl.
in the musicians, they go like straight edge, but they won't have anything because the moment one of these things triggers the addiction back, then it's like they feel like they lose control. So yeah.
My joke in LA is everybody is either totally sober or a raging addict alcoholic. Like, there's like very little like in between. And
It-
then most of my like rock star idols as a kid, they're like all sober now.
yeah, it's funny. Everybody's so like, okay.
And
I mean,
I'm sure your
sorry.
past and everything it has is really helpful with all your clients because you can meet them wherever they are, you know.
Well, that's very important. I want to be really accepting of anybody and where they're at. And if somebody's strung out in drugs, or somebody, there are people that just they drink occasionally, they whatever, do some drugs, like they're not like, it's not an issue, it's not a deal. Like, it's not screwing up their lives. So yeah, I want to hold the compassionate space, and I just throw no judgment on that. And really, I think especially if you're a teacher, you need to really accept people where they're at. And then also, it's up to them. If I do a reading for somebody, I'll lay out some stuff. And, I'm very lucky. I was groomed, I was trained. So I was taught to leave the querent with a course of action, with solution, and to make sure that they have clear cut ideas and goals. And I love to, and I use techniques that what I do is I see what's your sort of highest potential, and then what's the best course of action based on everything that's happening now.
Yeah.
And you got to just accept, and then I think more importantly, people need to accept where they're at, like, but being a professional reader is very interesting because I take it very seriously, and you can't mess up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no room for error and there's no room to be vague. And that's just where I spent years of training. But I didn't think what I had, I thought so many people were into this or knew about it. I mean, it took,
When you're reading, you mix all your different knowledge together, like the numerology, the tarot reading, whatever you're seeing. I mean,
astrology. Yeah, like I draw on those techniques, but I kind of like to have the little map. I just kind of joke, it's like all my cheats. So I know numerology really well. I'm quite good at astrology, but I'll never say that I'm an astrologer. And then I really like, I'll have these visions, and then Like things will just come to me, and then I'll use tarot. But I just pull on those techniques because I do dowsing. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's like how I'm guided. I kind of have like a formula that I work with that I harmonize. I'm probably the only one using the combination of these techniques. But I do like to say, like, don't get caught up in the techniques, like, because people will message me and they want to, is it a tarot read, is it numerology? And I'm like, you don't have to worry about that, because it's just I'm getting to a result and I'm getting to the
Yeah.
information.
Part of the
Because
whole.
people will think, well, tarot reading things that astrology can't see, and astrology is certain things. Well, tarot will see it all, but
Yeah.
they each have like different reasons why you would use them. So it's just my cheat. I used to not be that as into astrology, and I used to look up a person's chart that's just to have it in the background, because it's almost like Googling somebody, that you're just Googling with the cosmos, what is this person's incarnation? And a lot of times they'll do a reading and it all comes out of the astrology. It's just, I don't know, like if you read yourself, and I know you have an oracle deck, like
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter what the deck, like you can use
Yeah.
that as a trigger to activate something in your consciousness, and the answer will come. Like this plant here,
Yeah.
I have to
Totally.
give away to my neighbor.
Really great astrologer, but I could use that plant and read something and have it trigger something. And a lot of it, you just get better because I do thousands of readings.
Yeah. Do you feel like now that do you feel that a lot more people are like aware or awake to what's like that there's more to just the 3D world that we live in, like that reality? Do you feel that in your readings you see more and more people coming that are, you know, a little bit more, their consciousness is a little bit more open to,
Well, yeah, but it's more, my experience has been this, is that over the last like 3 years in particular, I have so many people that were kind of what they would consider, they were just living regular lives. Like they had a job in finance and lived in New York City, or they worked at an insurance broker, and nothing on those jobs. They just thought, oh, I just live, I get a job that pays the bills and gets me ahead, and life is fine. And now I've been having over the years so many people, they were literally going along their lives and literally 180 degrees, like black and white, all of a sudden something happened. They all refer to it as their awakening.
mm-hmm.
And like people that are going full on, a lot of people that quit everything are now like teaching yoga and successfully and talented at it, not just lusting after the idea of being a yoga teacher or something. Like they really have something. And it's been astounding to me. Do I think that the whole planet as a whole is waking up? I don't know. I
Yeah,
used to think,
I mean, like I have a feeling that this new era, like more and more I see, I mean, maybe it's because me personally, I'm attracting more of people that are like-minded, but I feel that there's more and more people that they're open to all these ideas. I mean, I've explained many times, and I've done interviews for my artwork, like how do you work? I don't know, I'm in front of a blank canvas, I have visions and I just paint what I see. I don't go through a plan, oh, I'm gonna just do this now and this thing now, and it's very symbolic. And I feel like more and more people are understanding that process, whether before it's like what and I'm wondering if it's because it's the times that we're living now that.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit like you said, you grew up doing all that stuff, but it wasn't common. Like, I mean, if you talk to our parents, like that would be crazy.
Yeah.
Are they super
like that.
and strict? All my French friends, their parents seem almost very traditional. They
But
also,
I must say, our parents,
Yeah,
I
they're
always
not
felt, yeah,
traditional.
because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
artists, they're fashion
Yeah.
designers and
But
all
still,
this.
our
So
dad would not be like, I'm channeling,
no,
what's coming in.
or
That would
maybe he's more open to it
maybe he's
now.
more open
It's
to it now.
crazy.
Yeah.
But before, for him, yoga was a cult, just
Yeah.
like what you're saying. Are you
Exactly.
doing yoga? Yeah, I'm doing yoga.
Yeah.
Don't go into this. It's a cult.
Or going to a therapist is like, you're crazy.
um, well, no, I do think, I mean, I was kind of joking earlier, but people are way more open. I mean, because I've definitely seen that if people are searching more than ever. Most of my experience is living in America. I mean, yeah, I've been to Europe. I've got to teach in different places in Europe and things like that. But in Canada a bit. But I think that people are becoming more aware, even if it's something a little bit astrology. I mean, I've definitely seen sort of in a pop culture point of view. I mean, even like Gucci started doing like tarot design
Yeah.
stuff. I'm sort of like, wait, why didn't I get hired to consult them?
Yeah.
I know like some big fashion people in LA, and I'm like, wait, what? I was sort of jealous, but then I was like, oh, that's really cool. But I mean, the fact that I got the book deal that I got for numerology from a not, it wasn't from a new age
Well,
book.
that's what I wanted to ask you too, because we're gonna run out of time. Like, what do you have coming up? Well, you want to talk about your book, and
I
if
have
yeah, go ahead.
So I do have it's the equinox. I think is a little bit as of recording this, it's tomorrow, but this may air on the equinox, which is cool. I do have a workshop that is a serious breakdown, and then I get into the numerology, getting into the 6th year, 2022, finishing out this 5 year. So I have a lot of content online for that, and then my book drops in November. There's some delays because there's a whole shipping container battle with publishers that I just learned about. So, but it'll be towards, it was supposed to be November 11th, but my book on numerology, it's called
11/11, huh?
That's when it was supposed to be, but there may be a delay, but it's out of, it's the shipping container battles. It's a thing, it's a real thing. And that book though it's gonna go worldwide. Like it's gonna be so it's a book on esoteric and numerology teachings that my publisher is not a new age publisher. They like publish, cookbooks and biographies
Wow.
and things like that. So it means that they're opening up to this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some pop culture popularity, but I think more and more, like I'm just seeing people too that are very known in the world. And when you live in LA and do this, you kind of get to meet a broad spectrum of people. But I think even people in a real public eye are being more open about this stuff, not just like Madonna and her Kabbalah. It's
Yeah.
like a lot of things people know. I don't know. It's getting popular, which certainly has helped me to create a thing and get book deals out of it.
That's
Um,
great.
so the book comes out, and then keep an eye out. I'm always doing workshops. I have Patreon, which I teach a lot of tarot. I go a lot deeper on my Patreon. I post several videos a week.
I gotta check that out too. I've been meaning to. It's just like lack of time. It's been like crazy.
You're like a hugely successful artist, and you're doing so much stuff. So.
Yeah, but I'm always. I mean, I've always been curious of, all this. I mean, I've done. I mean, I learned from Doreen Virtue like years and years ago, angels and angel readings and healings, and I've learned Reiki a long time ago. I was pregnant, and my kids are 17 and 15 now, so that was years ago. Because I was always curious, and I've learned with a shaman, and I've learned all this. Just because the curiosity and finding the what's, I mean, knowing that there's not just what you see like right there's more to it, there's so much to learn about, and ancient traditions, and we had somebody on there talking about witchcraft too, and I mean, it's fascinating, always been.
there's so much. I'm always worried I'm gonna like run out of content or things to share or speak about, and then I'm like, all right, so far so good. Like
Yeah.
Patreon, I'm waiting to be like, okay, well, that's all I got. But it just is so layered. There's so much, and ultimately too, it's like taking these ideas and how are you putting it into your life. You know, this is one thing I was taught, is that spirituality is the whole of your life.
Yeah.
So it's not just, oh, you got to be meditating like a monk or doing tarot astrology readings. That's all part of it. But art is really, in the magical tradition, art is one of the most important teachings, though. You're supposed to do art. You really are groomed and should be an artist. So you inspire me to do way more art, and I'm having a kid, and I'm like, wait, I don't want to be non-artsy parents. Like, like painting again, and I want that out. My parents were artists and stuff, so like I always had art things happening as a kid, and now I'm like, you know, writing seems less tangible to a child, or talking about numerology. So it's all part of it: art, spirituality, love, cooking, you name it. It's like all the whole gamut. So those are the things I have, and then I'm organizing, but I don't have the official dates. I want to start doing some retreats, and we're going to do some of those in the Northeast. It's really beautiful, very magical, in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine area. So
Nice.
and you guys are so welcome to.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
If you guys visit, want to check that area. There's a lot of French speaking in Vermont because we're really close to Montreal. So you
Yeah.
can catch up on your French, and so it would be amazing. But those are the main things I have now, and I'm writing a tarot book, and I know I'm about to get the book deal on it. So I just gotta go.
Cool.
All right. Well, this has been a real honor. So thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Very
It was
much
so great
for doing
to
that with us.
to meet you, even
Yes.
if it's via the internet, but via screen. But yeah.
Thank you very much.